Episode 209, 209, 209, 209, 200, 209, 209, 209, 209. Anyway, it's a Crazy Talk episode. That's really setting the tone for what's to come, so strap yourselves in. Lots of dribble, as you can tell. I'm already spitting on the mic. And lots to talk about in this episode. Let's keep on point, on topic. You know, we'll hit some world news, bit of Corona talk. Actually, I won't talk about Corona too much because there's enough social commentary out there, enough people, enough experts, social media experts weighing in on their opinions from all walks of life. And I tell you what, I think I'm getting sick just from reading all the garbage online from this whole thing. So I think that's more painful than probably actually contracting the virus. But anyway, it is what it is. But I think I mentioned last week we were starting to see the beginnings of this chaotic time that we're now starting to fall into, and you know the whole toilet paper shit and all that sort of shit. And I sort of mentioned I think some things were starting to get cancelled, and I was like, yeah, get ready, there's going to be more. Well, here we go. Pretty much everything in the world is being cancelled or postponed at the moment. I thought it would only be a few things here and there. I was predicting Download would definitely get cancelled, and sure enough, it did. That was a weird one actually, because I think the headliner, My Chemical Romance, they cancelled all of their touring because of the virus, and because basically everything else in the world was starting to be cancelled and postponed, and so they did it. And then Download put out a statement basically blaming, well, I've got to be careful because I don't, it was just the way I read it and the way that it was worded. It made it sound like the only reason they were cancelling the festival is because My Chemical Romance pulled out and they didn't have enough time to get another headliner in, and because it's a headline to draw card, they would have had refunds, etc., and so they had no choice but to pull the festival. And to me, I'm thinking, well, you probably should have been doing that anyway. This whole coronavirus thing, maybe a duty of care, bit of social responsibility. And I'm sure it would have happened anyway had the whole lineup still been intact. But it was just an odd way of them wording it. I think I would have been a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more socially aware, and at least make a little bit of an acknowledgement to the health and well-being of other people as well. So I don't know. It was a weird one, the way that they wrote it. But anyway, Download got cancelled. So that freed up my weekend next weekend. I don't know what I'm going to do then. Probably just sit at home and self-isolate. But everything else got cancelled. Dark Mofo down in Tassie, they've cancelled this year. They just realised, that's not until June, but I think they sort of realised that there's a lot of buyer confidence, and they've got to rely on a lot of sort of tourism and accommodation and people coming down, etc., and they're going to lose millions of dollars. So it was better to be safe than sorry, and they kind of got in early, which I thought was quite good of them to do it the way that they did. And then just everything else just imploded. I mean, when I saw the NBA, like in the States, like their National Basketball League just completely stop, and they postponed, and players started to contract the virus. And I thought, now we mean business. Like if a league like that, to the size that it is and the money that league generates, makes that decision to postpone things, things are getting serious. Like they're getting pretty serious here. So it just became the sequence of events. Everything started just to be canned. Mates of mine that hit the States to do touring. I think Aversion's Crown did one show at the start of their however many 20, 30, 40 odd dates in North America, whatever it was, and they did one show, and then they're on a plane back home, and they just got back home this weekend, and just because of the virus, but also just venues closing up and not being able to host shows, and limits on the amount of people that can be in venues and all this sort of stuff, and just logistically it was a bit of a nightmare. And I think that's what a lot of other bands and booking agents, touring companies have noticed, and so pretty much everything is getting cancelled. So just a really weird time that we're in at the moment, and it's only gonna I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. There's a lot of panic out there, a lot of misinformation, a lot of really fucking dumb opinions from your everyday fucking lounge chair experts telling everybody what they should and shouldn't be doing. Some real, irresponsible commentary out there, which I think there's certainly a time and a place to joke about stuff, but I think when you start to pay out on other people's conservative decisions to maybe not attend things or not go out, or maybe just take an extra level of hygiene and maybe sort of fall into the whole germophobia sort of space, I think that's probably a little bit unfair for people to sit back and point fingers or take the piss out of other people, and or making too light of a situation that ultimately we really don't know to the extent. I mean, it's better to be safe than sorry. So I'd rather people not panic as far as going into stores and raiding the toiletries aisles and things like that, and starving sort of, the more vulnerable people of the vulnerable. Yeah, okay, great, Andy. The more vulnerable people in the community who can't get in there and fight, their way down the aisles to get a roll of toilet paper or whatever it might be. But I do think that people need to be on alert and taking some precautions. And, if it means locking yourself up for a couple of weeks and just chilling out and not going out and hanging out with crowds of people, then what I think we'll be in a better space for it. So lots of big decisions need to be made, or continue to be made over the coming weeks and potentially months as well. Lots of gigs still happening, and to be honest, I went to a gig last night. I saw Pod People play in Enmore, which was really cool. It was fun, but today, just watching the world sort of digest these changes and the stuff that continues to change, minute by minute. I started to feel bad that I even went out last night and started interacting with people. I mean, it was a tiny little bar, really small place, the Hideaway Bar, bit of a shit venue, to be honest. I mean, I'd never play there myself, but I guess you need venues. I mean, I can't really bag a venue out. It's providing a place for bands to play music, but man, it's a hole in the wall. But, this tiny place and just, packed with people in close proximity. And I just thought, I probably shouldn't have gone out, really. It was probably a little bit irresponsible of me to be in there in case that, who knows, maybe I'm carrying the virus and I don't know, because I don't know how long it takes. It takes, a few days or a couple of weeks or whatever it might be before you actually start to feel any symptoms. So who knows, I could have gone in there completely infected and not known. So yeah, a bit of self, sort of awareness and some responsibility. I think I need to be a little bit more in tune with that. So I felt a little bit guilty today, and I mean, maybe the hangover probably didn't help either, but certainly made me think a little bit more about what I'm going to do over the coming weeks, and depending on how further this escalates, months, etc., etc. So I'll definitely be thinking about a number of different things that I choose to do, sort of in the near future. So anyway, I'm sure there's enough stuff online. Everyone knows it. That's what all the world's talking about at the moment. So, and I've spoken way too much about it already. So anyway, the world's shutting down. It'll give me an excuse to read a bit more, watch a few more documentaries, and actually not have any other real responsibilities for a little bit of time, So I'll try and find the silver linings in these situations, because there will be heaps. And I think I mentioned in the last Crazy Talk episode, there's opportunities out there, and maybe, and not to take advantage of people or anything like that, but I think there's definitely opportunity when there's some dramatic change that happens, and unexpected change. And I think there'll be some very smart people out there that are able to make the most of these situations. And so I think everyone sort of needs to have a bit of a glass half full mentality with this. Obviously be very, very cautious about what you do, and doing the right thing and not being a grubby cunt. But I think just sort of looking at it and going, okay, what can I do to make the most of the situation that I'm in? And I think that'll take a lot of the stress and the anxiety off us individually, and hopefully just keep everyone relatively cool and calm during this weird time. So anyway, so what else has been going on apart from that? I went and saw Kip Winger. Speaking of gigs, I went to another gig on Wednesday night at the Factory. So I think I mentioned last episode about the Melodic Rock Fest and the cancellations, blah, blah, blah. And I was planning to go and see Kip Winger, but still not 100% of what was happening there. I think I was talking about the tickets as well. So I think pretty much as soon as, or when this episode came out, last week's episode came out, I should say, the tickets got slashed in half, or more than half price. So they were $30 a ticket. So, you can't say no to that. So it ended up being an all right turnout. I thought it was going to be very awkward. The Factory floor is a very small venue in Marrickville in the inner west, and really cool opportunity to see an intimate show with Kip Winger, which, amazing musician and, a guy who's just been around the traps for a few decades now and done heaps of great stuff, obviously with Winger, and played with Alice Cooper. And he's done some great solo stuff, and he's pretty sure he's done some stuff on Broadway as well. And just, he's been around the traps and just an incredible musician. So, great opportunity to be in a small environment with him, but I was really worried that it was going to be like, I don't know, 15, 20 people, because it was not advertised at all. Like, apart from some Facebook, promotion, I saw nothing anywhere else, which doesn't mean that there wasn't any other promotion, but I certainly didn't see any. So I was a bit worried that no one would show up. But I think maybe there might have been 100 payers, maybe. Yeah, possibly. But the good thing about the room is it's small enough that you could get 100 payers, and it's pretty cozy in there. It's pretty good. So great show, like a fantastic show. He played a whole bunch of Winger songs off the first 3 albums. Played a bunch of solo stuff. He did this song that he wrote for a theater production. I can't remember what it was called, but he had a little, like an iPad thing in front of him that he had hooked up to the PA, and he had the music playing in the background, and he just sang it. And it was incredible. I've not seen a vocal performance like this in a long time. And this is coming from a guy who just thinks John Farnham's the greatest vocalist of all time, which is 100% correct. But this was like everyone around us was going, wow, like what the fuck was that? That was so good. And then I'm thinking in the back of my head, I've got to find this so I can hear this, like on Spotify or whatever. And then he said, oh, I'm sure I don't know where it is. Anyway, he said that it's all on Spotify, but then he said he wrote all the music and then he had other singers sing on it. And there's apparently a guy from Sydney who, does theatre productions, blah, blah, blah. And he sang on that particular song. And it kind of went, oh, well, if it's not Kip singing, I'm probably not terribly interested in hearing it, because that was the whole thing. Like, that's why it was so cool to see Kip sing this song. But I'll have to find the name for it. I'm sure somebody out there listening knows exactly what I'm talking about and is just laughing at me trying to describe it. But I'll try and track it down and see if I can find it. But it's whatever, I don't know. It's some sort of theatre production that Kip wrote the music for this play or whatever it was, musical or some shit. So it's certainly not an area that I'm well versed in, as you can tell. But yeah, really, really cool. So great night. BB Steel, an old school Aussie rock band from Melbourne, opened up. They were okay, not too bad. They're very Def Leppard-esque, and when I looked them up online, apparently old mate, what's his name? One of the guitarists from Def Leppard, Phil Collins? I always get, anyway, whatever. Phil from Def Leppard, he either produced or mastered like one of their EPs or something like that back in the day in the late 80s or whatever. And they were sort of tailored to be very influenced by Def Leppard. So when I sort of read that, I thought, okay, that makes sense. That's why they have so many guitar licks and then vocal harmonies and things like that are very, very, very Def Leppard. So they were okay. They weren't too bad. But yeah, Kip certainly was the big highlight of the night, of course. And afterwards, I don't know who these guys are, but the promoters, I think, from Melodic Rock Fest were there with Kip doing these side shows. And one of the guys came out and said, oh, Kip's going to come out and get photos with everybody. So just we'll make a line and just, don't waste any time, blah, 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 yeah, et cetera, et cetera. We've only got so much time we can do this. And I kind of thought for a moment, I thought, nah, I'm not going to hang around. I'm not going to sit in a line and get a quick photo. It's just churn and burn moment. And some mates that were there, shout out to Mitch and Doug from Hermina. They were there and they were in front of me, enjoying Kip, and they hung around and got a photo with him. And it looked really cool. I mean, he's such a nice guy. Like, the way he interacted with the crowd, spoke with the crowd, just acknowledged everybody in the room, and then obviously putting on the performance. He just seemed like the coolest guy out there. He's like one of those guys where you sort of go, oh man, I wish he was my mate. Like, I wish I could say that Kip Winger was my mate and you could just hang around and just chat and shoot the shit. But yeah, I always feel weird in these meet and greet sort of situations, whether it's a paid one or just, in-store signings or whatever it might be, because you're just in the mass, you're just sort of churning through this line, and there's no opportunity to sort of really connect. And I'm sure it's nice for Kip to be able to have people coming up and saying all these nice things, but I just thought, I don't think I'm going to get anything out of this, and I don't really want the trophy of just a photo to say, hey, I've done it. So So I left and went home, but I did flick Kip Winger a message to say, hey, if you're hanging around Sydney for an extra day before you jet back to Melbourne for the next show, would be very keen to do a podcast, but he didn't reply. Damn. So anyway, I thought I might get lucky. I thought I might get another white snake luck of the draw there, but no. But you got to be in it to win it. So maybe next time. Maybe he saw my last Crazy Talk episode where I was just hanging shit on Melodic Rock Fest and thought, no, I don't want to be associated with this guy. He's a hater. So who knows? But yeah, great show. Really, really enjoyed that one. So, and there was sort of it wasn't pre-coronavirus because it's been around for a while now, but it was sort of still early days where people really didn't know to the extent, well, at least in my world anyway, in my head, I didn't really know to the extent, but maybe even Wednesday was a bad idea to be going out into public spaces. Maybe still too late by that stage, but so between that and the gig last night, I think that's it for the time being. I'm not gonna go anywhere. No local shows. As much as you kind of want to get out there and support, local artists and the venues and the people that are getting paid and employed. I think it's probably better to just take a step back and just better be safe than sorry. So I'm gonna do that. So no more gigs for the time being. Catch up on some other shit and hey, I can do more podcasts, so even better. Okay, I put out the latest social newsletter that came out on Thursday last week. So if you're not on my mailing list, go over to andydowling.net and you can sign up on there, or andysocial.net. There's a little pop-up window and you can just add your email address in there. Sent that out. Not as many reply emails giving me shit for clogging up their inbox, so slightly better response this time. But really good. I had some really, really positive feedback from that, from the first newsletter and this one as well. So I've got some more ideas for next month's newsletter, and I'm starting to get a little bit more of a vision of where I want it to go over the coming months. So I'll be finding extra things to put in there. There's some stuff that's always going to be repetitive in there, like the usual plugs and buying shit and the usual links, etc. But I'll try and make it more informative, more interactive, and some dumb stuff in there, some fun stuff, whatever. It's gonna be a mix mash of all sorts of shit. So, happy I actually followed through and got the second one out. So we'll see how that one all goes. Now, if you glanced over it, you may have seen that there's a couple of things in there that are worth paying attention to. One, which may not happen now, especially after the last last 2 or 3 days, is the next podcast meetup, which at the moment is planned to be the 28th of March, Saturday the 28th of March at Pump House in Darling Harbour at 2 p.m. So it's Saturday the 28th of March, 2 p.m. And come along to that and have a couple of drinks with me, or soda water or whatever. I already know a few people that are planning to come, so that'll be really good. And but at the same time, just keeping on topic with what we're saying before, we'll play that by ear. So if I'm getting a little bit closer to that and things have gotten worse in the world around us, or in Australia or whatever it might be, and it's still pretty bad, then or getting worse, then I'll probably pull the pin on that one. But I just don't really want to encourage. Even though it'll probably only be a few people, I don't think, hang on, I can't talk on behalf of anybody else. I don't think I should be hanging around in pubs at the moment and just in close proximity to other people. So if we're still on that theme come the end of this month, then I'll postpone the podcast meetup and push it back a month and just reevaluate and see how we go. But at the moment, Saturday the 28th of March, 2 p.m, Pump House at Darling Harbour. I'll make another mention of that over the next couple of weeks anyway, just to keep everyone in the loop. But yeah, hope to see you there. And it should be, I want to keep them fairly regular and keep building it, and I'll try and do some things at each of these meetups as well, just to make it, half interesting as well. It's not just an excuse to have some drinks. I'll try and build on it. But time will tell with that one. The other thing in the newsletter, which was important noting, is that I mentioned, I sort of alluded to giveaways that I talk about in these Crazy Talk episodes, because I wanted people to actually listen to it. So there'll be people that get the newsletter that haven't bothered to listen to the podcast or the Crazy Talk. and then vice versa. Some of you guys listen to me waffle on, but probably haven't signed up for the newsletter, so I'm going to try and get people to move back and forth between the two. But with that being said, I'm going to completely contradict myself because I'm going to tell you what was in the newsletter. There is a challenge, a little competition that I've got for this newsletter, and I'll do something like this each month. What I'm doing is I'm going to give away a 6-pack of beer or cider, depending on your preference. So yes, this is only for the alcos, but I guess, to be honest, if you're not, you don't drink alcohol, maybe there's some nice non-alcoholic drinks that we could substitute. But I'm going to send a 6-pack to anybody in Australia. I'm going to get it delivered to your home address, and free of charge, of course. You're not paying anything. I'm paying it all. I'm copping the costs. And all I'm asking for in return is I want you guys to leave a message or send an email or a direct message or leave a comment publicly or whatever to any of the guests that have been on the podcast. It probably would be better to do guests that are more recent, just to keep it sort of while it's still fresh. But I don't really care. It all helps. So maybe it's Tony Barber, who was on the podcast yonks ago. Maybe you might message him on Facebook and say, "Hey Tony, I finally listened to that episode from yesteryear and loved that episode. Thank you so much for those great stories." Blah blah blah. Or it could be Rusty Young, the author of Marching Powder and Columbiano. You could shoot him a message. It could be Leroy Loggins. It could be Michael Cusack, the guy who did the April Fool's Australian version of Rick and Morty, and has also done Damo and Darren and YOLO and all that sort of stuff. Maybe you flick him a message and tell him how much of a sick cunt he is. It could be, who else? Oh, well, it could be some of the more recent guys. It could be Daniel Towns. It could be Andrew Farris. It could be Joel Hoekstra. It could be Cam Knight, who's coming up this week. Shit, sorry, I didn't say spoiler. Oh, you'll hate me. So it could be anybody. But what I want you to do is you work out your style, how you do it. I don't care. I just want to make sure that the guests start to get things from people. I want people to see that there's a bit of love from the anti-social crowd. So if you do shoot an email or direct message, or you leave a comment on a public post somewhere or whatever it might be, or tag them or whatever, just do a little screenshot and flick it through to me. And you can flick it through however way you wish. Same deal, email, instant message, or whatever. I don't care, as long as I know about it. And I'll pick a winner. I'll pick a winner and I'll announce it in the next newsletter that comes out mid-April. And I'll probably reach out to you and ask what your preference is, if I can find it, or I might just ask what's your preferred flavor rather than brand. So if you're a beer drinker, I'll ask if you love ales, or you like a lager, or you like a light beer or a heavy beer or stout or porter or whatever, and then I'll find something and flick it over. You might have a preference, let me know, and I'll see what I can do. And same with ciders or non-alcoholic drinks. Why not? Let's include everybody. International people, sorry, but I'm not paying for booze to be, shipped away. I probably could do it, actually. No, I'm not overcommitting myself. Too early, Andy. Don't jump the gun. But my international friends, look, I'm still going to do stuff. I'm still going to have giveaways, especially in these Crazy Talk episodes. They'll be a little bit smaller. Not that a 6-pack's a massive prize to win, but something different, something a bit fun. But I'll continue to include you all as well. However, in this instance, for this particular little giveaway, little challenge, I'm just reserving it for my mates in Australia to begin with. Just a bit of fun, and I'm going to mix it up and change it over time. But so flick me a copy of any message that you leave any of the guests, showing a bit of love, and you'll go into the draw to win an amazing 6-pack of drinks of your choice. So there we go. Speaking of giveaways, of course. Let's announce some winners. So the last few weeks I've been telling people, hey, leave me a review somewhere, because reviews help a lot, on Apple Podcasts or Facebook in particular. They're sort of the big two at the moment for me. But really, you can leave a review anywhere. It could be a blog post somewhere. It could be on your own little website. It could be on a message board somewhere. I know some people still use message boards, the old BB bulletin board. It could be another podcast platform that has a review or comments section or whatever it might be. It might be on Reddit, maybe. It could be a community notice board. I used to say that quite a bit on old antisocial intros. Put a little thumbtack note on a community notice board and do a review of an antisocial episode. Why not? Take a photo and pass it through to me. It's all content. whatever it is, doesn't matter. And flick me through a copy of the review, and I've been giving some stuff away. So I had Adam from Brisbane last week. He did a review for me, very gracious of him, and I flicked him out a copy of What Tomorrow Brings. And then for this week, I've actually got another copy of What Tomorrow Brings. I've also got the Art of Shredding, which is a compilation CD from 2006, which is a whole bunch of mostly no longer functioning Aussie metal bands, all covering Pantera songs, including us. We covered Shattered, and there's a bit of a time capsule for Aussie metal there, and obviously a historical sort of moment in metal where it's an anniversary for Dimebag Darrell. Geez, Andy, I'm starting to mumble here, of Pantera, who is no longer with us. And I've also included a non-music item. It's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. Might just even read the little blurb on here. Let's see. Tiny changes, remarkable results. Atomic Habits, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones by James Clear. And I'll quickly read the back because, why not? Let's just keep this podcast stretched out and waffling on. Anyway, a revolutionary system to get 1% better every day. People think that when you want to change your life, you need to think big, but world-renowned, oh God, should I just give up? Habits expert James Clear has discovered another way. He knows the real change comes from the compound effect of hundreds of small decisions. Doing 2 push-ups a day, waking up 5 minutes earlier, or reading just one more page, or maybe just reading one more word and giving up. He calls them atomic habits. In this groundbreaking book, Clear reveals exactly how these minuscule changes can grow into such life-altering outcomes. He uncovers a handful of simple life hacks, such as, in brackets, the forgotten art of habit stacking, the unexpected power of the 2-minute rule, or the trick to entering the Goldilocks zone, and delves into cutting-edge psychology and neuroscience to explain why they matter. Along the way, he tells Man, what a train wreck. Just turn it off now, guys. He tells inspiring stories of Olympic gold medal... now I've just jinxed myself. Olympic gold medalists, leading CEOs, and distinguished scientists who have used the science of tiny habits to stay productive, motivated, and happy. These small changes will have a transformative effect on your career, your relationships, and your life. And I'm going to stop reading right there. Anyway, it's a really good book. I've read it. I've got this extra copy. It's brand new. I haven't actually read this copy of the book. I'm going to give that one away. So I just, so I've got 3 things there, so I figured if I get more than 3 reviews, then I'll pick some lucky winners, and then I guess depending on, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Anyway, so I've got 3 people, so they've left some reviews in a few different places for a few different things, so it all helps, so they're all going to get something. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this, so maybe in the order of people contacting me and showing me the review will be their preference of what they want to get. So first of all, there was... oh, geez, I'm just pulling up my phone here. So the first one was Mick Goddard. Mick's been on the podcast before. You can go back and listen to Mick on episode 38, maybe? 38, or was it 36? Or is in the 30s. Go back, and Mick's got his own photography business called Mick G Photography, so go and check him out. And he's been a massive asset to the Australian music scene. He does a lot of... bands that come out here, big international tours, and takes photos for them. Does a lot of work for webzines and different publications, but he's also at a lot of local shows taking photos for just countless number of especially metal and rock Australian bands, local bands, and he's helped a lot of these bands just have a far more professional look online, just due to these amazing photos. He does amazing work. So and definitely listen to that episode that I did with him, which feels like a lifetime ago. Anyway, Mick did a post on Facebook, so I'm going to quickly read this one out. Andy Dowling wants people to leave a review of his podcast, and he will send them free stuff. I left a review about a year ago, and Facebook won't let me leave another one. Boo! But I want some free stuff, so a share of his Facebook page. It is ... Andy does an amazing job chatting to a great variety of people in his podcast, even me a while ago. It's not an interview-based podcast, it's more like listening in on 2 mates having a chat at the pub. Give it a listen. I'm 99% certain you'll enjoy it with the metal horns. So thanks, Mick. It's a big help, and I love when people do stuff like this. So No, it's not. It's not a review on the Facebook page, but it's a review on Facebook, and it's a massive help. It all helps. So, Mick, you get first dibs of any of those 3 items. I've got a funny feeling that you already own 2 of them, and it may be the book that you might be interested in. But I'll leave that up to you. Maybe you need an extra copy of something. Maybe you lost something. Anyway, I'll leave that to you. Now, the second one is from where is he? It's Ash Gray. From Moama in New South Wales. Ash has had a couple of shout outs in the past, so always a big contributor to the Antisocial podcast. So he has left a review on Apple Podcasts. He helped me bump that fuckwit who left me a 1-star review because he couldn't handle that in his head that my podcast had the wrong categorization, and so he just felt that it was important to make sure that everybody publicly knows that I have shit categorization and I deserve a 1-star. So so Ash has done a massive favor by booting his review down by 1, but I need a few more of you people to really sort of push this one down, deep down into the abyss of reviews. So anyway, but it's a great start, and Ash has been able to knock this one out of the preview screen on Apple Podcasts. So thank you very much, Ash. Now, Ash wrote, title was awesome, 5 stars, still my number 1 podcast. Glad you're back in action, Andy. It's in a great category too, I might add. Wink face, keep them coming, mate. And you got the metal horns, a thumbs up, and the little 2-beer icon. 2 beers. 2 beer or not 2 beer. So thanks, Ash. Appreciate that. You're going to have second dibs. I'll let you know what's left over after Mick's had his hands in the mix and picked what he wanted. And third, last but not least, and this guy's starting to get a few shout outs on the podcast. He loves it. I think he's, anyway, whatever. I won't keep waffling on. Andrew Shug from Perth in WA. He has left me a Apple Podcast review for the Nod to the Old School podcast. So he's done something a little bit different, and I'm still going to acknowledge it because it's a massive help. And to be honest, I'm pretty sure there's only 2 reviews on Apple Podcasts for Nod to the Old School. So please, if you've got a couple of minutes, go and leave me a review on there as well, because that is one of the podcasts that has done pretty well for me, but should be a lot better than what it is. It continues to pump along, and I think I mentioned a few weeks ago, every once in a while I'll see just one of the episodes in my stats sort of spike, and I'll go, oh, where's that getting posted? And sometimes I can't find where it is, and sometimes one of the guests that was on the podcast will share it, and that will definitely help. But yeah, I feel that there's so many people out there that have not listened to this podcast yet and would actually really, really enjoy it. So yeah, if you got a chance, leave a review. So Andrew has done that. Now let me see, because I've forgot on landscape. Okay, 5 stars. Title is Great Little Podcast Series to accompany Lord's Fallen Idols album launch. Album launch, Andy. There we go. All right. And I continue. A simple podcast series of 10 episodes where Andy Dowling of Australian heavy metal band Lord interviews some folks he knows about their memories of mixtapes in the 70s and 80s. You might not have heard of everyone on the list, but they're all worth listening to. I particularly liked the episode with Dave Ellison of Megadeth. Thanks, Andrew. Legend. Thank you very much. That was a 5-star review there. So that helps. They all help. They all help. And please get creative. It doesn't, Apple Podcasts and Facebook is just the easiest, the most frequent sort of platforms that people are interacting and using. So it's usually the easiest to try and convince people to leave a comment or a review somewhere. But hell, anywhere, please leave a review. It pops up in search results. It's SEO friendly stuff sometimes. And just helps with those weird algorithms, etc. And I just want more and more people to just stumble across it and go, fuck it, let's have a listen. Let's see what it's all about. So, Andrew, you'll have last dibs of whatever is left over after Mick and Ash have had a little look and made a decision as to what they're gonna snap up. But those 3 items are going to be given away this week to you guys. So thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Now, I'm going to keep this going. Same deal. I'm just going to keep doing reviews until I've run out of stuff at home. I've always got stuff. I've got heaps and heaps of stuff. So I will not be short of things. So just to keep the theme rolling, same deal. Reviews anywhere on the internet is a massive help to me. The best ones for me are Apple Podcasts and Facebook, but I am not going to discriminate. You leave a review wherever you can, and I will be very, very happy for that. So do that. Send me a screenshot or tag me, or just let me know where it is. Screenshots are usually better, so flick it over via a direct message. message, I should say, and I'll keep a track of that. So I'm going to have the Dimebag CD again, and What Tomorrow Brings again. This will probably be the last week I do this, maybe. I don't know, for those items. I'll see. I've got a couple more copies, so maybe I'll just keep them going. And then the third one, I'm going to keep in theme with books. I have a copy of some of you self-development gurus and sort of finance experts or whatever, or people. Anyway, shut up. I've got a copy of Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. So it's a classic book, an amazing book. And I know a few of you out there have read this, and it's been a massive game changer for you. It is from quite a few years ago. I think it was originally published in the late 90s, I believe. Let's see. Oh, why not? I've got it in front of me, so let's have a quick look. 97 was the first time it was published. So it's getting old now, but it is 100% relevant to right now. It's amazing book that just gives you a whole different perspective of money, the psychology around money, how you should look at money, and how to just make better financial decisions and better life decisions. Actually, it sort of extends past that. It's a really, really good book. I cannot recommend this book enough. It's one of those books that was a game changer for me and for a lot of other people. I think Matt Haywood, shout out to Matt. He was on Self-Starter for his property buying business in Victoria. He's massive on this book. John O'Barwick from Tabra, he's read this book. That's been a game changer for him as well. I'm trying to think of a few other people out there that have read this book. There's heaps of you, I know, because I've spoken about this so much over the years. But I've got a freshie here. I've got a fresh copy. It's I don't even know where I got it, to be honest. But it's like relatively brand new because I've got a couple of copies. So that's up for grabs. So if you're keen, clean's on point. If you can, then that'll be in the mix along with the What Tomorrow Brings Lord EP and the Dimebag Daryl tribute CD as well. So I'll have those three up for grabs for next week. So all you need to do is leave a review, and if there's three of you, then I'll do the same thing as what I did this week. If there's more than three of you, I'll pick three out of the mix, and either way, I'll be, unless I suddenly have this massive swell of hundreds and hundreds of people leaving me reviews, which would be amazing, a good problem to have. More or less, I'll be helping you all out. So I'll get around to it. But anyway, I've got three things to give away next week, so up for grabs. Now, spoilers. Well, not really, because I mentioned it before, but this week on the podcast, guest for this week, this Thursday night, will be Cam Knight, the comedian, also actor, TV personality, radio personality. He's been on a whole bunch of stuff over the years. He came over here a few weeks ago when we spoke about metal, actually, for a large chunk of the podcast. He's a bit of a metalhead, and so we talk a lot about that. And he mentions a few Aussie bands that he loves. So I'll leave that to happen in the episodes. You can listen in. And we talk about his new show, Straighty 180. We talk about his sobriety. He hasn't been drinking for a few years now, so he's talking about like what that's all about and what life's like for him now. And yeah, just a top guy. Really good conversation. So I'm keen to get that one out and share it around. And as I mentioned in previous episodes, get a few more comedians on the podcast over the coming months. And I know a few of you have actually sent me a bunch of different suggestions. So I've got a long list of Australian comedians that I've got to start reaching out and having a chat to and getting them on the podcast. So some really good stuff coming up. But yeah, Cam Knight's on Thursday night, so please get behind that one. Do a little bit of a push, and I'd love to see you guys sort of help me do an initial sort of bump when these episodes come out. So usually, the first place is I do post it on most of the social media platforms. Sometimes I forget, and it's just hard to keep up to date with everything. But Facebook's usually the first place I drop the episodes, and I usually use the Whooshka podcast player because it's the easiest thing for people just to click on it and just play it instantly. So yeah, I'd love for people just to be there at around 8 o'clock and scrolling through the feed and just bam, straight away, give it a bit of social media love, maybe tag a mate who you know knows that guest or likes that topic or that particular person or whatever it might be, or just doing the usual, liking and commenting, or maybe you want to share it, whatever, it doesn't matter, but that all sort of helps give it an initial little bump, a bit of a boost, and Facebook starts to go, hey, well, this might be valuable content for people. So we'll start to make it appear in people's news feeds, which is always a nice thing. So please, if you got a moment just for a couple of sneaky little clicks, then that'll be massive. So Thursday night, 8 p.m, as every guest episode each week is released. So looking forward to sharing that one with everybody. Speaking of the collective of you fine folk that tune into the podcast, I also last week when I put out the newsletter opened up a little Facebook group called The Social as well. I'm going to keep on brand. And it's just a little place where I'm just going to dump some extra stuff in there. There's not a lot going on in there at the moment. There's only a few of you. I'm keeping it very small and contained. If you have received the newsletter, there's a link so you can click through and request an invite, or invite yourself, or however it works. You go to invite yourself, and then I look at it and I approve it. So anyway, it's a private group, so no riffraff in there. I'll try and minimize it. But I'm trying to keep it like a little inner circle of really cool people, relatively like-minded, and just share some interesting things. So please, any of you legends that are in the group already, and you find anything interesting in your travels, surfing around the internet, or just whatever it might be, dump it in there. If you think of a really interesting podcast guest, maybe throw a post in there and do a link, or a link to a video, or if it's a musician, or I don't know, whatever, or just a story. Dump some stuff in there. Just make it really interactive, and I'd love for it to become a little bit of a hub where just find like cool things to share, and maybe just I don't know, like just a bit of a community. So that whole community building thing. So anyway, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I've created a group, and that's what I'm doing. So hope you guys enjoyed that, and please join if you haven't already, and I'll get you in there. But there's only about 20 of you in there at the moment. Nice little small community of really good people. So there's a little introduction post in there, and people have been introducing themselves, which is good. And keep it up. And I think that's about it. I don't think there was any other pressing topics this week, apart from the latest podcast coming out on Thursday. There's not a lot else going on, to be honest. I'm not going anywhere. There's no events happening. Anything that was coming up is being cancelled or postponed, and really, I don't know what the hell I'm going to be doing this week. So, I mean, I've got plenty to do, but no sort of events or particular functions or anything going on. So we'll play this week by ear. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things to talk about, and I guess I'll dribble on about it next week. So andydowling.net, of course. I mean, you guys know already, but you can go over there. All my social media handles are there. You can go to paypal.me/andydowlingofficial, and you can donate to the podcast. That'll help me build this little podcast empire of mine, and sort of fund some of these crazy ideas that I have for this year and beyond. And what else is there? Just everything else that's on andydowling.net. Just go there, or you can click through the show notes. There's links in there as well. So just lots of ways to support me and the podcast. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Until Thursday. All right. Catch you later. Bye-bye. Larry.